Hello everyone! Welcome to another episode of Reddit Reactions, where real humans read, react, summarize content on Reddit, so that you don't have to. Today we're going to be talking about impeachment, and let's start by establishing some context. What is impeachment? Impeachment is a process to get rid of the power of an elected official in the United States. So it happens in other places, but right now we're going to talk about impeachment in the US. It's not something that just happens to presidents. It can also happen to any elected official. It's actually much more common that it happens to like a judge or something like that, not actually the president. There's only been a couple presidents who were actually impeached, and none of them were fully impeached. So let's talk about what the process looks like first, and then get into the presidents that got impeached or almost got impeached, and then get into what's currently going on with Trump. So first, it's the House's job to be like, hey, yo, you effed up, we're gonna impeach you, and then give it to the Senate, and then they're gonna decide what to do. The House's job isn't to judge the case, right? That's not their role. Their role is to just initiate the process and be like, hey, that's an impeachable offense. It's our job to impeach you. Once you get impeached, that just means it's kind of like the case is open now. You know, they successfully impeach means that there's an actual movement to listen to in the Senate, right? And then if that happens, then the person can actually be removed from office and in some cases barred from running again. So that has something to do with why they're impeaching Trump, even though he's about to lose office anyway. But in history, this has barely ever happened. Andrew Johnson was the first one, or Andrew Jackson, however you say that. I don't remember right now. He was the first person to get impeached, and he did not get convicted or whatever. He got acquitted. And when you get acquitted, that just means that you're like, oh, you were impeached, but whatever, basically. It's the same thing that happened to Trump the first time he was impeached. That's when you get impeached, and then it gets acquitted. They just let it go, basically. Just on the record that you got impeached. So the next president to get impeached Nixon wasn't technically impeached, but he was gonna be impeached, like very certainly gonna be impeached, and he just resigned right before that happened, and then he got pardoned. But all the motions to impeach were about to happen. So yeah, technically he wasn't impeached, but he's arguably the only president who, if he got impeached, would probably have actually been removed from power, right? And to think that that event was mostly because their administration was spying on another administration, which is something that seems a little minor now, which is probably not good that seems minor, right? Like, really. So after Nixon, who wasn't impeached but basically was, then there was Clinton. And Clinton had sexual relationships with someone in staff and then lied about it under oath. And that's why he was impeached. And he was not convicted. He was acquitted. So he was just impeached, then nothing happened. Then you have President Trump, who got impeached, got acquitted earlier last year, and then now is being impeached again. But it's very odd because they're starting this process, and the House voted, and they got it. It's happening. The impeachment started, right? But this is a really weird case because one, it's the first time that a president's ever been impeached twice. And two, it's happening, but now the case is going to go to the Senate. And by the time the actual trial happens, it's going to be in Biden's presidency. So I don't know how's that going to work. How do you impeach somebody from a previous presidency who no longer has the position that you're trying to impeach? I'm not sure that there's a set way to see this. We're just going to see on like the 20th, right? But now you get it. Now you know all the context about impeachment. So we can start looking at people's responses. Let's hopefully try and find some comments from multiple different opinions, but who knows? This is a video in the Reddit politics section. There's a politics moderator bot that posts stuff, and then, they do a pretty good job of getting rid of the crazy comments and just keeping the civil ones. So it's an interesting way to learn about stuff. Okay, let's see what people have to say. So John the Quain says, a fun fact: now if you say the President Trump impeachment, you'll need to clarify which one you're referring to. That's quite the legacy. Paperback Buddha said, ask and you shall receive. The disambiguation page lists a link on Wikipedia for the first and the second impeachment. Parlor Shank says, the one about his betrayal of America, her people, and her constitution? Gonna need you to be more specific. Yeah, these are all anti-Trump. I'd imagine it's easier to find anti-Trump comments right now because all the pro-Trump platforms just got death starred. They just got completely poofed in 4 days. Trump's Twitter got banned, Parler got shut down, a whole bunch of other Reddit removed, the Reddit Trump section. It's kind of, honestly, I'm kind of alarmed. I don't know if that's a good idea because the people who really support Trump, but they kind of support Trump on the side, and they're just, because Trump doesn't make the super violent people. He enables them, totally enables them, but he doesn't produce them, right? He's not having secret KKK meetings and figuring out how to produce all these people. He's just being irresponsible and not realizing or realizing, I guess, that his words have consequence, right? So what we have to be so careful about is that these individuals, they care a lot about certain things and they don't give a crap about other things. And regarding Donald Trump's impeachment, some of the more intense, extreme people, I'm hesitant to say Trump supporters because they're not like that because they support Trump. Again, I know people who are good people who support Trump. It happens. Some people have religious reason, and it happens. I'm not saying, I don't want to be pegged as somebody who's saying all people who like Trump are bad and all people who don't like Trump are good or whatever. That's not how I view things. I definitely think it's important to talk to and listen to a lot of different opinions so that we can come to more educated opinions. I don't think it's right for us to just be oh yeah, I have the right to an opinion when I haven't educated myself at all. I don't think you do have the right to an opinion unless you've exposed yourself to not just education, but a lot of different people, especially people who disagree. That's really, really important. And the problem with silencing this is that's the worst thing you could do to one of these violent, extreme Trump supporter people, because in their heads, the world's already ending. It's over. It's apocalyptic. And by silencing Trump, it's like an act of war to them. You literally are taking away the right of one of the people they look up to and respect. And that's dangerous. And I want to believe that just silencing Trump is going to be fine and there won't be any consequences. But I don't know if that's true. And he was already about to leave office. He was about to lose his power. And he'd already just gotten screwed publicity-wise because he obviously had influenced this attack on the Capitol, right? He was already gonna be in trouble online. And by completely silencing him, I don't think that that's gonna help. I definitely don't think that that's gonna... It's not gonna make the violent people any less likely to attack. If anything, to them, it's an act of war. It's an act of aggression. It's going to make them retaliate. And that's what I'm nervous about. I don't think we should be so willing to just silence somebody. And if the social media platforms were going to silence Trump, they should have done it ages ago. Not right now. This is a really pivotal point. And I mean, maybe it'll be fine. Who knows? Let's move on. See what these other comments have to say. Maybe we can find some more articulated arguments. These are nice so far. The Archangel says it's dangerously close to a Tom Haverford quote from Parks and Rec. I think he's talking about stores in Eagleton. And one of the options will be the one where he incited a failed coup on the seat of the U.S. government. Which impeachment are you talking about? The quid pro quo one, or the time he incited an insurrection at the Capitol? Oh, God. An Aussie here by Thomas Often. So possibly talking out my arse. Won't the second impeachment simply cement his base? I.e., this definitely means that the deep state really hates and is scared of what our POTUS can do. Well, I don't think Trump's base really cares that much when he gets impeached, to be honest. I think Democrats care more about it. They're like, yeah, Trump got impeached. We want to be able to say Trump's the second president to get impeached, because we all hate Trump. Let's get on the hate Trump bandwagon. Sigh. Little Monster Purr says, I think they've already been pretty damn cemented. Filled with it. Clear. See, these are all, I want to get to some relevant content. I'm just going to move forward. Okay, this one's kind of funny, though. Diveriuk says, he's truly delivered on his promise to make America great again. The presidency, the House, and the Senate are all blue. I never thought that I would cheer the Cheeto, but here I am. Way to go, Trump. Oh, man, I want some Cheetos now. I swear. Here we go. Okay, so now we're getting to some actual comments that have some depth to them. And if I remember right, this is going to be a pro-Trump comment, and then there's a long response to it that's... this is an anti-Trump comment, and then the comment after that is going to be a response. It's a pro-Trump comment. So let's see. Substandard Gaussian says, this will only be a singular legacy for a short while. I believe the era of continuous partisan teardowns is upon us. Whenever the House and presidency are of different parties, we will start seeing impeachment for every cough and sneeze. State legislatures are already starting to use majorities to refuse to seat new members. I don't know if it's relevant to say cough and sneeze when there really was like an actual attack. They found like bombs and stuff and built like it was totally an attack. Just because white people did it doesn't mean it's not a terrorist attack. Like that for me, that was the saddest part. Was seeing those videos and knowing that if those people were black, there wouldn't have only been one person shot. Like, I understand more people died, but they literally invaded areas they weren't supposed to, next to most of the U.S. government's politicians, and there were bombs. Like, that's more than just a cough and a sneeze. Like, that's a crazy event, right? And even if Trump just contributed like 2% to that, I mean, people still to this day argue that like Bush and those others caused 9/11 and crap, and that was ages ago, right? But that was, contribution to a terrorist attack. People still fight over that crap, so people are gonna fight over this even longer, I'd imagine. Let's get back to this. So this person's saying, it doesn't matter that the action in Pennsylvania is due to a 69-vote margin. Constitutions tend to be clear about what must be done to control the chamber, not so much under what conditions. That's how McConnell has created a graveyard out of the Senate. Follow procedure and have your people vote to make it legal. It's up to the chamber whether a concern is legitimate. You object to this? Well, let's put it to another vote. Seems unfair? Your amendment to the procedure requires 2/3. Good luck. The two-party system is entering its late stage in America. A strength of coalition governments is that having enough of a consensus to run a legislature requires people act reasonably and in good faith. With a two-party system, no such luck. Well, this person's biased, but I get what they're saying about two-party frustrations. Like, I like, from my perspective, it's not actually the fault of the two-party system. because it's more enabled by humans. Like, it's not the whole shit talking your opposition, figuring out what your team, just believing you're better than the other team. That's not like a circumstance limited to politics. If you have pride in your country and you believe that your country is better, you are thinking the exact same way as these bipartisan two-party people. If you think that your sports team is better just because it's where you're from, if you think that your country is better than other countries just because it's the country you were born in or the country you have citizenship in, it's the same mentality. And that's why, like, I personally don't think that it's as simple as just, you can't just blame the political two-party system, because if that were true, this kind of polarization of argument and of people and failure to understand each other and failure of compassion, if it was just a bipartisan problem, then those issues would only happen in this political scene. But that's not true. This happens in sports. This happens in kind of all forms of foreign diplomacy in all countries. It's a people thing, how people treat each other. You could have people treating each other properly in a two-party system with Republicans and Democrats. It's not ideal. Obviously, you want multiple parties to balance each other out better. But that being said, the Republicans and Democrats could just treat each other better. They don't. They both shit-talk each other all the time, and it's infuriating. As a foreigner, like, listening to U.S. politics, it's like, I mean, it's not like politics anywhere else, but it's just frustrating. You know, they don't try and talk to each other. They don't try and communicate. And both acts like, oh, why do you think the way you are? But a lot of us gotta acknowledge, like, even Trump, almost half the country elected him. Yeah, more people voted for his opposition both times. He still got the first, he still got the electoral college. He still won in the first place. But that's not the point. My point is that that's still half of the people in the country, of your country. These are your people. And I get that you just want to hate them and you just want to say they're not, but they are. They're Americans, just like you. So, the bipartisan two-party problem, that's a human problem. It's not the fact that there's Republicans and Democrats. It's the fact that Republicans and Democrats just shit on each other all the time, and they're constantly saying that the other did it first, and now they're doing it just because the other one did it. And you can just find people arguing about the same crap, right? And you're about to see that, so let's get into it. Engineer 2727KK says, agree with a lot of what you said, but hugely disagree that McConnell started it. Harry Reid started the process of simple majority, which in essence made the Senate not have to work with each other. The rule seemed good at the time because it was in the Democrats' benefits, but has crushed Democrats for the last 4 years. A two-party state only works because of the necessity to obtain 2/3 of the votes for many important issues. Simple majority is just mob rule that gives absolute power to one party for 4-ish years before the pendulum swings the other way. People keep acting like the United States needs this gigantic reform, when the system that we created is the golden standard of democracy for countries worldwide. Yeah, I don't know about that personally. For me, I believe, so I'm a U.S. citizen. But I left the United States and I live in Latin America. I left like 4 years ago. And I wasn't born in the U.S. either. I was born in Sri Lanka, and I didn't even live in the U.S. till I was 10. And I spent like 13, 14 years there. I lived in Saudi Arabia, in Africa, in Lesotho. I've lived in a bunch of different places, a bunch of different countries, and I've seen a bunch of different cultures. And I don't perceive the United States as something that spread ethical effects. Like, it's true that the United States spread democracy, but I don't know if that is what changed things for the world. Because it's unarguable, the world is much better off. There's no country now that has a shorter lifespan than in 1950. Every country has at least 2 or 3 times as long of a lifespan as this 70-year in the past. But the U.S. caused a lot of pain as well, and you don't see that living inside the U.S. You kind of hear about it. You hear about the controversy of the wars and things like the Vietnam War and protests, and maybe your parents talk about that period of time to you. But for me, at least, I live in a country where the United States bullied Nicaragua. The United States came here and set up a dictator in power. The United States purposefully, knowingly established a horrible dictator. Not even like, he's a dictator, but, he doesn't kill people all the time. Like, no, he kills people as part of he's a classic dictator. Not even like a kind of nice dictator. No, he's just an asshole. Like, you can literally find quotes from the president saying, yeah, Somoza's an asshole, but he's our asshole. The U.S. willingly put governments in power that were corrupt and were killing people. There's a lot of crap that U.S. citizens just have no idea about and don't even have to think about. Whereas so many people in the rest of the world just got stamped on and stomped on by the United States when they should have left them alone. I don't think it was necessary for the United States to go out and wage war on the rest of the world in the name of democracy. That's fucking dumb. Because it wasn't democracy spreading that made life better. It was technology improving and capitalism. That's the reality. Capitalism and technology improving creates the circumstance that democracy comes out of. You can't just go somewhere and force a culture to be democratic. You can try, and you can tell your people, like the CIA, they've done a lot of horrible, horrible things, especially to people in Latin America and the Middle East. Horrible stuff. And people in the US are just living lives where they have so much material and so much that's built on the backs of these other people who U.S. citizens judge. And it's so fucking ironic. Like, all of the judgment about Latin America, all the crap about how dangerous it is, how if you live in Latin America, a U.S. person will tell you, what are you doing going there? You're going to get robbed, you're going to get mugged, you're going to get kidnapped, you're going to get raped, you're going to get killed, right? Meanwhile, there's millions of people living here. Right? And I'm not saying Latin America is all peaceful, but for me, it's so frustrating because Latin America's situation would be so much better if the United States didn't have a war on drugs. The United States creates this demand because they can't create their own drugs because they made them illegal, so they have to import them because the demand's still there, whether it's legal or not. So that puts Latin America in a position where it gives any drug cartel huge power because there's this neighbor who just pays loads of money, tons of money for the drugs because their country made it illegal. And that's so dumb. It's this constant mistake in modern politics where people and politicians try and fix something in the name of something, and by doing it, they make it worse. Like, by fighting the war on drugs, you create the war on drugs, right? There's a lot of evidence that if you just had more legislation and you just had more acceptance and more tolerance of drug addicts and treated them like people with disease who needed to be helped, that things would be different, right? But, yeah, I don't know. Let's move on now. Oh, here we go. So this is gonna be probably anti-President Trump. I'm gonna get into it here. It is originally by Savage06. This is a largely bullshit argument. I'm not saying the Democratic Party is full of Boy Scouts. However, context matters. Let me enlighten to you as to why Reid eliminated the filibuster just for lower judicial appointments. Because McConnell, in his Sith-level bullshit, refused the Democrats to see... He does look like a Sith. He's got the goose-neckedness of a Sith or an aristocrat. Like, I don't know if any politician looks more political and Sith-like than Mitch McConnell. It doesn't help his arguments. Oh, man. The Sith-level bullshit refused the Democrats to seat any judges in order to intentionally keep the seats vacant to fill them with wholly incompetent young conservatives. It worked well for him, but only because the Democrats at that point were oblivious as to just how craven he was going to be. It's important to know you have judges seated, so he eliminated this filibuster to go to a simple majority vote. You act as if McConnell would never have thought of this, until, well, he sat on an empty Supreme Court seat for a year, only to then eliminate the filibuster and appoint undeserving conservative piece of South Carolina justices. Supreme Court justices, sorry. See, adding words like that, calling people pieces of crap, it doesn't make people listen to you. That's our problem. We insult each other instead of just articulating how we don't agree. And instead of focusing on conversation that would actually improve each other, we like to talk shit and blame and get angry. And it's so frustrating. To be a person seeking peace is so frustrating. That's one of the most, the most frustrating thing about humans is that we're all way too fucking smart. Like, we just get bored and we like getting the thrills of arguing, and we're not happy with our lives. And instead of improving our lives and fixing our problems, we get caught up in the moment of getting angry at other people we don't agree with. And it's so frustrating because we could just improve. We could just work together. There's nothing stopping us aside from us. Oh, man. Oh, okay. Moving on with this comment. Our democracy hasn't been the gold standard for jack shit for at least 40 years because it's fully rife and infiltrated by private money and corporations, which has gotten exponentially worse over time. Okay, I'm gonna agree, not in the wording there. I don't like the way he's worded this, but I will make a point here that I don't think it's accurate to say that money is more influential on politics now than it was before. I think that just shows that you're a human and you only live for like 80 years. So as you come into adulthood, you become aware of events around you, and it seems like they're more corrupt, but really you just weren't alive for the past 200 years, so you don't know shit about how corrupt it's always been, constantly. Money's always allowed you to get out of anything. The problem in the past is that only very few people could get money. You didn't have the options to just earn money like you do now. In the past, 400 years ago, if you were born a peasant, the chance of you getting out of that life and earning and making a business, even if you wanted to, even if you were trying, it was really, really unlikely. Whereas now, you have options. You can go out and make a business. You can go out and invest in stuff. You can go out and get a job. You can go out and get educated. You got lots of options. So don't underestimate how good we have our lives. Don't underestimate how good we have it in general. Like, I get that it's hard and there's a pandemic and crap, but like, seriously, 100 years ago, by the time you got to be 8, you probably knew 2 or 3 other kids your age who were dead from various diseases. It was normal. People would have multiple kids with the same name. It was so normal for children to die. You probably don't know anybody who died from tuberculosis. Do you realize that tuberculosis has killed more humans than anything else? Humans haven't even killed as many humans as tuberculosis has killed people. And you don't even know a single soul who died of it. And that's how amazing it is to be alive right now. We have so much luxury. So don't be ungrateful for that. Okay? Please. Moving on with this comment. The filibuster is also a 60-vote margin, not 2/3, and it is essentially a mechanism to provide an objection to a piece of legislation and talk as long as you want to essentially run the clock out on that legislation. I'm all for collaboration and negotiation, but you have to have two sides with differences that can see past said differences to attain a greater good. With Newt Gingrich and Grover Norquist that went out the window to King Mars. It's only gotten horrifically worse to the point where we have dozens of batshit conspiracy theorists in the House of Representatives, in addition to that bought and sold King morons there has always been. The GOP needs to be carpet bombed into submission until some non-lunatics decide to evict the lunatics into their own party. That is the only way anything can get done in here and now. This comment's funny because it seems like it's a fusion of a Democrat and an intense Trump supporter, you know? Because using a phrase like the GOP needs to be carpet bombed into submission when there were actual bombs found in like the National Convention buildings it's a bit out of taste, you know? Definitely not the right phrase there. You could definitely argue that already happened to the politicians. Like, before, the politicians were more disconnected, whereas they were just fearing for their lives for a moment. For all of you out there who are listening and think, you know, they could have been sending stimulus checks, but they were lollygagging and taking their time because they're politicians who have a bunch of money and they're not really affected by the coronavirus crisis like we are. Well, they just had to be scared out of their lives. They thought they might get shot or something. They were at work and there was a shooting fear. And I personally think that that's going to help the politicians feel more related to us and our crisis, right? Don't see how them going through that is going to make them less detached or more detached, right? Hopefully people work together more now, but who knows? We'll see. Moving on. Ooh, Engineer 2727KK says, "Let me enlighten you. Since you obviously have no fucking understanding of precedent, it was when George Bush Jr. was president that Democrats started to really politicize judge appointments, as you can tell from the no versus yes votes on record here." A link to Senate.gov. A young senator, you may know him as Obama, along with John Kerry, decided to try and do an unprecedented move and filibuster Supreme Court Justice Alito in what he now says and regrets was a symbolic vote. The Senate Majority Leader in 2007, Schumer, vowed to block any Bush Supreme Court nominee with 19 months left in his presidential term. Republicans then began to retaliate, so Harry Reid took action and made it a simple majority. And then Mitch McConnell then became majority and absolutely crushed the Democrats with their new rules. Then Democrats began to complain like crazy when they started the game under Bush. Please understand history through a lens longer than the last 4 years. I don't blame you since you're probably new to politics, but it's embarrassing. See, okay, these are more informative responses to each other. This is the useful kind of comments I like reading. I don't, here's another joke about Trump by Frank Adam Gabe. Timpetus Trump, twice impeached president of the United States, although I think Timpetus rolls off the tongue better. If things go the way they should, it will end up being Ty Potus, twice impeached ex-president of the United States. It would be nice to equate his presidency to just being a typo, even if only symbolically. Oh, you know, I don't like Trump. I don't like the things that he's done. But I kind of believe, well, no, I do believe that in life, oftentimes it takes a stirring of up to get things where you want them to be faster, if that makes sense. Like, I can give you a metaphor from gardening or planting. There's some plants where, say that you want a lot of fruit. If you just let the plant grow, it's only going to produce a certain amount of fruit. Like, let's say it's going to produce one fruit-bearing bundle. Whereas, if you cut the plant's head off at the right point in the plant's life cycle, after it's established a strong root system, it will create multiple new plant heads from that cut. And with the power of its root system, it will now grow and have 2 or 3 times as much active growth. And in the long run, if you cut the head off a plant at the right time, it actually produces more fruit. Something called pruning or trimming or pruning. And that happens in life a lot, where sometimes in order to get one thing to happen, you have to deal with the opposite. Does that make sense to you? Like I'm not saying I endorse Trump at all, but I do believe that the ridiculousness and the craziness and the intensity of these 4 years have created this reality where you can change things much more easily now. Everything just got effed and was all up in the air and is all over the place, and now we can change things in a new way, in a way that it's easier to get things through. It's easier to make change happen because of all of these standards that were just thrown out the door. And I think that in the long run, that's actually going to help. I know that it's been crazy, and it seems very, very crazy right now, and I hope nothing crazy happens and no violent people do anything bad. But as long as we make it through this period of time, it's probably going to get better, probably going to be more stable. I know that it's hard to forget or to remember, but the world's actually in a really great place. We have problems. We have way less problems than our grandparents did. We have way better lives. We have way, way more freedoms. And really, if you study history a little bit, you can't complain without really being ungrateful. We have the luxury of living an amazing life. Don't let Trump or Biden or COVID take that away from you. You should be grateful to be alive. If you don't feel grateful, I don't know. Visit your childhood. Try and do things that you did as a kid. Try and get in touch with that gratitude, because we have so much that so few people before us ever had. We have access to so much information. So many people. You can meet anyone anywhere in the world and talk to them in a moment. There's so much power with that. So much that could be done. All right, guys. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Please reach out to us if you want to make this kind of content. We are looking for other content creators to have Zoom calls with and do some feedback sessions with to use our tool. If you want to get our email, go to our YouTube channel, look in the About section under 4 Business Inquiries, do the CAPTCHA code, send an email saying hello, because we want to have a Zoom call with you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please subscribe if you want more content, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!